This is Jack, and we're here to talk about Johnny Sacco and his flying robot, Episode 3, The Gargoyle Vine, a Space Plant. And of course I have my boss, Ryan.
Hello. Generally, I feel like it's not as well-paced as the other one, the one with the giant ball. This one was interesting. There was not much explanation behind the giant plant thing, or at least the egg for it.
Dr. Botanist, or if you're watching in Japanese, Dr. Over, he is from a different galaxy.
Okay.
Guillotine called him from his empire. So I'm assuming, it doesn't say so in the episode, you are correct, but I'm assuming that the plant comes from one of Botanist's home worlds.
That makes sense. I mean, his name is almost like botany, which is like plant stuff like that.
Right, and he's a doctor.
Yeah.
The reason why he wanted Dr. Dorian is because Dr. Dorian was studying space plants.
Mm-hmm.
That tells me that the Gargoyle Vine, obviously from out of our universe.
Okay. Fair assessment.
I had liked the episode a lot. The puppetry on the Gargoyle Vine, to me, was harder to do than Nucleon Ball or the Draculon, which is just a guy in a suit. The puppetry on the Gargoyle Vine made it tough for them to have a battle between him and Giant Robot.
The fight scene, say it wasn't as much as it was with the ball or Draculon. He literally joins the fight and then just kind of starts flailing around for the first couple minutes. He gets picked up after shooting a few rockets, actually. He does shoot a few rockets at it. He hits everyone, by the way. He hits every rocket, unlike the tanks. The tanks were hit or miss, and they were missing 90% of the time.
Which is an amazing thing when you think about those little tanks and that giant Gargoyle Vine. They could not hit but 1 out of every 20. Well, Giant Robot could not miss. We did have the return of, my favorite character, and I know you like him too. The villainous Spider was back with all of his facial expressions going nuts, and he was even humiliated by being turned into a gardener for the Gargoyle Vine. What did you think of Spider's appearance in this particular episode, and how do you think he survived the car explosion?
He survived via plot armor. I'm joking. No, I'm not sure how he got out of that, but I mean, I'm glad he did. However he did, good on him, because we need his glances and glares.
The actor is committed, man. Every time he's on the screen, doesn't matter if he's being talked to, he is animating it up.
Always
I love that
Always
character.
in character, yeah.
Always in character. I think this guy deserves the #1 nod for actor in this show.
Hey, maybe he just like that all the time. Maybe just after the show, he just always looks at everyone like that. That's just him as a person. They picked him up and were like, yeah, you're it.
I think he probably didn't get in the car, because if he got in the car and the Nucleon
I think
ball
we saw him get in the car, but my headcanon is that he got in the car and then realized, maybe this is not a good idea because I've seen all the other cars get blown up. I'm just going to get out and run.
Could have gone out the back way.
Yeah.
Because it was right next to the woods. So if he jumps out the back door, then just goes into the woods, the unicorn's not going to find him.
Yeah.
We had the introduction of a new villain. We're going to talk about the villains a little bit, and we will go into the heroes. Johnny and Jerry had some movement. The new villain that we had was Dr. Botanist from the Dark Galaxy. Dr. Botanist had, I believe you were talking about teleportation powers. I thought it was invisibility, but your idea on the teleportation makes way more sense.
Yeah, it seemed more like teleportation. At first it did seem like invisibility, but then there was a scene where he appears behind our main characters, he does whatever, and then he disappears behind them, and they run into that same spot that he was in. They don't bump into him and they don't run into him, nothing like that. I figure it most definitely is probably teleportation.
Yeah, I think you're right. I really liked this character. I liked the fact that he was constantly dumping on Spider, showing that, he's just an arrogant cuss. When he gets humbled, when Giant Robot defeats the Gargoyle Vine, he's so ashamed he doesn't even want to look at the screen. Did you think Guillotine was going to kill him right then and there?
No, I mean, he gave Spider multiple chances at this point. He keeps him employed, so I figure he'd probably keep the other guy employed as long as he don't die, Mr. Botany. He lucked out there.
Guillotine is a merciful evil emperor.
Yes.
Emperor. What do you think of Dr. Botanist?
Interesting villain, I guess. His introduction was a bit, jarring, but I guess that expected when you're from a different galaxy and you can teleport. Because the way he was introduced, he kind of just appeared behind some police officer and then disappeared in a millisecond when the police officer turned around. And that was like the first view we got of him.
And then he walked on the roof, literally upside down like a bat, to capture Dr. Dorian.
Yeah.
He did something to knock him out with that little hiss he had. And of course, Botanist is silver and bald, has some odd claws for his hands. He looks like Lex Luthor if he wanted to be Brainiac.
Yeah, makes sense. Or like Silver Surfer and I don't know.
Silver Surfer and a Bond villain.
There you go.
He combined.
Silver Surfer and Dracula, if you were it.
What did you think of the villain's plan this time? They planted the Gargoyle vine in a coffee shop.
Was there any importance behind said coffee shop, or was that just like, central area coffee shop, let's just destroy it and kill all these people?
That's why it was central area. The plan was to use Dr. Dorian to make multiple gargoyle vines. As you saw them pulling out like multiple seeds. And then they were going to plant those seeds throughout the city or throughout the world because they were looking to destroy the world. I think they were basically hotels, coffee shops, any place that has plants would have been what they were going for more than anything else. What do you think?
That makes sense. They only got the chance to make one, right, before he came up. He came two,
yeah. What did you think of the brain surgery?
I wish we would have got like something more out of it. It was mainly just like seen, oh, he's gonna go through brain surgery, and then the saw came down, and then it cuts, and then the next time we see him, it's just he's got the wraps on his head and he's completely fine. But the way the saw came down didn't make sense from the way his wraps were. I don't know.
The saw comes down in the middle of his forehead if it's coming down.
Yeah.
And he's wrapped around the top.
Around the, like, under the chin, over the top of his head type of thing.
Maybe we just didn't see the full unwrapping. Maybe they were unwrapping prior to...
Maybe. He was like mummified.
Mummified, yeah. I mean, if someone took the top of my head off...
If they were going to take the top of his head off, they might as well have just put the saw blade in the other direction. Like, facing horizontal to his forehead.
That's true, instead of vertical. It's like, what are you getting at vertically?
Ripping his head in half and then going in. You know what? Maybe that's why Spider was so confused and like, oh, it worked? Right? Because he cut him down the middle of the face and was just like, wow, I'm surprised he actually even survived that.
Right, I'm sure that's what it was. I would have been surprised too.
Yeah, me too.
We have two heroes here. We have Jerry Mono and Johnny Sacco. They definitely took an active part here. I thought Johnny was very compassionate to the little girl who lost her grandfather. I thought it was odd when they just ditched them when Granddad was drugged on his way to the hospital. I guess if you have a giant plant that's attacking the city, priorities.
Yeah, priorities.
What did you think about Johnny and Jerry in this one?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of the episode left me kind of wanting for more stuff, like more explanation, stuff like that, and there's more action. Definitely feel like they kind of were just in and out for most of the parts rather than being the actual main characters of the show. It makes sense when you introduce a new villain.
It's definitely a different pacing because of the new villain. They had to give more screen time to Botanist. I mean,
especially because he's like more of a talking role rather than the nuclear ball, which wasn't.
Here we get into the Gargoyle Vine, the battle scene. We're not talking about the character itself. We'll do that next. But the fight scene. Giant robot comes in. He seems to be held off by the vine. He's striking at the vines and not the core until eventually Johnny tells him, hey, do the missiles. And he does the missiles. He shoots the core and he actually hits them all, like you pointed out. And then he does a power punch. And then he seems to get the heads up on this thing. He starts even cutting down some of the vines that were coming at him.
Yeah, that was probably the best part of the scenes, when all the vines are slowly attacking him. He's like smacking them out the way and cutting them up.
The gargoyle vine hits him with spores that ice up his joints and then ties him up. The robot kicks his feet into a power plant, and the electricity shoots through the robot's metal body and blows up the vine.
Yeah, I figured... honestly, giant robot could have lost that, because if he wasn't next to a giant power source, then what do you do there?
Right. If he doesn't have the electricity, he's still tied up because he can't get up. Johnny said, get up, and he tried.
And we know how much voltage the robot can take because, we mentioned it in the last episode. It was they literally charge him up. They don't even overcharge him, really.
He charges up with an atomic bomb, basically, in the beginning, too. If I was comparing the three fights, I think the most physical slapdown was the Draculon.
Yeah.
And then maybe the most creative fight was the Nucleon ball.
Yeah.
This had a little bit of both in it.
It had a little bit of both, but I feel like it was like more of like a jack of all trades rather than a master at one kind of thing. The other two kind of gave me a little more than this one did.
Right, the pacing was different too. This one also was interrupted in the middle and things like that. The yay or nay on the Gargoyle vine itself. As Lord Highborn explained what the vine looks like and what powers it had. But what did you think about the design of this vine and what it was?
Yeah, the design of it was actually pretty cool. The way it had those little tentacles and the vines. Well, not tentacles, really. It was like more a giant plant. It had feet, too. I forgot about that. It had legs and feet. It was weird. But yeah, design-wise, it was interesting. Very, I guess, disgusting, really. But, cool. As for its villainy and the whole fight and just overall, give it, I don't know, it just didn't do much for me, not with as the other two. So a light nay.
I'm gonna give it a yay, but I love the look. I like the powers. I think it's way too hard to make it battle because it relies too much on the puppetized limbs. But I did like it enough that it's not in the negative for me. Pretty darn close.
Yeah, I was like, for me, it's not too far in the negative, but it's just under a yay.
It's just a hard to do, hard to use monster.
Yeah.
It would be better as one monster among many. As far as the episode itself goes, for me, the pacing was a little off. I like the invention of Botanist. I like the introduction of Botanist. So, my final thoughts are that it was worth watching, but it's the weakest of the three so far.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give it that much.
Next time, we are going to do episode 4 of Johnny Sacco and his flying robot. We know that Dr. Botanist has yet another chance, so we'll see what he comes up with. So until then,
watch out for falling kaiju.
Giant robot, missile launchers ready. Fire at will. Now the power punch.